I'd like to call the meeting to order, Rutland Town School Board on December 12th at 6:02 p.m. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to start by hearing if there's any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda. If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Lynette. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next, we have teacher, staff, and community comments. Seeing as we have no guests in the audience here, is there anyone online that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Oh, she's raising her hand.
Never mind. Sorry, Katie.
It's okay. I know Sarah's going to talk about this, but I just want to thank everybody for their support and doing our Project Feeder Watch. It's been really amazing having the community come into the school, and I've just appreciated all your feedback and your support of the project. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to old business. Lewis, do you have an elevator update for us?
Yes, I can give you an update. I'm not sure exactly how much information you got last month, but so we went out to bid for the elevator. The bids were due back on November 15th. Unfortunately, we did not receive any bids for the project. Since then, Kelly has been working on getting more details for the project. He has spoken with Giancola and the fire marshal, and they have determined that in order to make the elevator active, that we would need a second set of egress. So we would need stairs, another set of stairs, most likely on the outside of the building. So I know I've had some informal conversations with Kelly and I believe with Sarah, and we really just need to decide what our next steps are going to be. He has gotten some drawings of the second floor that were done back, I guess, many years ago. And I think the next step is, if we're going to put this back out to bid, is to hire an architect and do some renderings for the elevator, so that we can do more detailed bid specs and hopefully get a qualified bidder. But I think also one of the next steps we should decide on is if we're going to move forward with this project, is do we want to take care of some of the other items first and sort of put the elevator on hold, such as building stairs, coming up with the design plan for the second floor, maybe even doing some of the work on the second floor, and then once all that is done, we can build an elevator. Because right now we're building an elevator and there's nothing up there, no useful space. But if we do all the other stuff first, then the elevator could be one of the last steps. I think not getting any bidders kind of changes our plan a little bit. I mean, we can go right back out to bid. But we don't really know if we'll get bidders next time as well. So I think we have to change things up a little bit to try to get a bid for the project.
The way we put it out to the voters, wasn't it for the elevator?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't think we can use that money for anything else then right now.
No, we would have to do something different, yeah. We've, at this point, missed the winter pool for the bond. That was due in December. And we can't start that process without having a bid, because we really don't have any sense as to what that cost is going to be. And if we do the bond for too little, then we're going to be shorthanded. The next bond pool is the summer pool, so we could still catch that pool and be able to do the project next summer if that's the board's desire and if that's the plan that they want to move forward with.
I think one of the reasons that we chose the elevator first was because it was a little bit easier money-wise. Secondly, in order to use a space up there, we have to have the elevator anyway, right? because it has to have accessibility. So I guess my question to you is, how, I know you said that they need a second way to leave, but what does that have to look like? Like, what's the minimum that can be done? Can it be, something, like a outside fire safety ladder? Can it be, what does it have, the minimum it can be?
I think it could be a second set of like metal stairs outside that's attached to the building, sort of like it can't just be a fire ladder, I don't think, but it could be like a fire, like one of those New York style fire escapes
fire
where,
escape.
yeah, with the metal stairs that kind of loop back and forth. It could be as simple as that, or it could be more elaborate, I suppose. I
And
think
in order-
outside the building is probably going to be your easiest and most least restrictive option.
So we have a set of drawings for the elevator?
No, we have a second set of we have a set of drawings, I believe, for the upstairs.
Which just shows where the elevator is.
Probably nobody's going to bid on something if there isn't a set of drawings to it.
But I mean, honestly, you got a hole that you put an elevator in. It's not, I just don't quite understand what the drawings would look like for an elevator. I mean, here's the hole the elevator's going to go up and down, and that's there.
Well, there's where the storage is for the art room, that's where the mechanical room is. And the elevator is actually going to take up part of the classroom. Where the mechanical part of the hydraulics would be is in one of the, I think it was on the,
So they're using that part for storage?
right where the elevator is going to be, that storage right now, but next to it, there's a section by the home ec room that was supposed to be petitioned off for the hydraulics for the elevator.
Yeah, I don't know. I know those would be on the original Berry Hill drawings. Because I think that included.
Yeah, I know he did get some drawings. I can confirm with him whether they were the elevated drawings. I thought he said that they were the drawings for upstairs, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, and I know the drawings was for 7 classrooms for upstairs, and I don't remember if the elevator
The whole,
shaft was part of that.
it was, because that was when we were gonna go out for the entire thing, hoping to put the Central Supervisory Union up there, which they would have had to had the elevator. So, but you're talking back when we first put it up, so it's
Yep.
quite a few years ago. But I mean, as far as square footage and everything, nothing really changed.
So what is the board thinking about what we want to do next? It sounds like the options are we could look more into the drawings and see if there are some drawings already that just weren't included as part of the bid. And maybe find the cost of the cheapest option for the stairs if that's required for the elevator.
I like that, yeah.
How often do we go out to bid and get 0? Is that
This is the first time I've known of.
I mean, a lot of times we go out to bid and get one.
Yeah.
A project like this, I guess there's not a lot of people that do this type of work. I think the only one I know, most of our schools use Otis for elevator, and then there's probably some construction work that is involved with it. That either someone has to subcontract Otis, or maybe Otis would subcontract.
Right.
But
Now, the architect ought to have an idea who does this, because they're doing other buildings, I would assume. Because that's, I think, who, they had to contact somebody like that to do the original drawings.
So, I mean, if the board wants us to put it back out to bid, we can get new specs in order and advertise it for longer and try to reach out to vendors that maybe are a little farther away. And
I think it would be, in my opinion, good to know that we did our due diligence of trying. We're trying to get our committee started on how we want to use the upstairs, I think we need to know if we're gonna have an elevator or not.
Right. I mean, we can't use it without the elevator.
Right.
I mean, if you get the drawings and then put it back out the bid, you may catch somebody's attention. I know there's Otis Elevator and there's a company in Montpelier. They work in Vermont, installing elevators.
You shared those contacts with us.
Huh?
You shared those contacts with us, I believe.
So when it goes out to bid, are they, like, is that sent to those companies, or is it just put in a general place?
The bid specs that we had were sent to the, yep, and then it was also advertised.
But they weren't sent with any drawings?
They were not
the
sent
first
with any
time.
drawings.
So maybe that would be helpful, just to try again and find out prices on the stairwell.
I mean, I think that's really one of the most important components. I wouldn't want to be a contractor and have to lug everything up there without the elevator to do the work. While we'll have to get an outdoor stairway or whatever. I know, isn't there an access, not that we're going to use that as the access, but isn't there a way to get up there from the gym?
Yeah. There's a set of stairs, steel stairs that are already installed that were put into code. We just have to take the door and the door frame off.
By the gym?
In the gym?
Right by just past the boys' locker room.
Oh, right, that's how we get up there now.
Yeah,
Right, right,
That end of that door would come off.
right,
And that
right.
would be the access that's already.
I don't know, but what that would work for the,
Well, I mean, Kelly had shared that he spoke to Ed Clark from NBF Architect, and he said he would put it out to contract to a company like Giancola, something like that, to do that structural stuff. He said people aren't just going to bid on the elevator because when it started with, the fire safety part of it. So they said they're not going to do an elevator until there's a second exit there.
But, so is there a second exit with the stairs that are already
yeah,
there?
but there's an exit there now, and then if we had the elevator, then we would have both of them.
No, the elevator doesn't count as an exit. So the stairs that we have now would be the first one. You need a
we
second
need a second
form.
A second, right. So that's when we started talking about the fire safety, that came up, and then he came and he said that may be why you didn't get, well, there's not a lot of people working. I mean, we could talk about that forever,
Yeah.
but that's why he suggested
No one actually
put it out to
came.
contract to do the structural stuff and then see if you can get a bid for an elevator
What do you mean structural stuff?
to get that second
The
exit.
second exit.
Just
Yeah.
the other exit?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I mean, we'd have to
I
ask
have
for it.
we found the drawings for the second floor, but I didn't see one for the elevator. I can ask Kelly again to touch base with the architect.
That's what I recall from the conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't see an elevator. I made it really big too. Like, am I missing something?
Up on the second floor at the end of the hallway where the double windows are,
Yeah.
that would get blown out and that would be double doors and the stairwell going down. That's all would be bricked and cemented up and closed in. That end foundation is 6 feet deep to hold the walls and stuff that would go in.
That's what the picture shows.
Okay, so we'll work on that.
Thank you, Louis. And flooring estimate.
I don't have any update there. I think that was talked about.
I think that we were,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we had asked, I know Kelly provided floor announcement last time, I don't know if Kelly was able to make the meeting tonight to discuss flooring, but, so, we can, discuss that more at length, in January. if you'd like, so.
I guess we have already provided an estimate, so what more
so
information was the
I
board
think
looking
what it was about was
The leasing.
the bond question, if it made, because you weren't here when we were talking about it, and I think Jeff had asked, well, what if we just did a bond? And so Chris had said he would talk to you about just trying the pros and cons of that bond, which is also why you gave us this bond information, I think, that we're going to discuss later. So I think that that's related to that,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So should we just talk about that, the bond information, or did you want to talk about that now?
We can talk about it now since it is related.
Great.
So in the packet I provided a current list of our open bonds. We have 4 bonds right now that are open. The first one is a bond going back to 2005. We don't actually owe anything on the bond, but it was refinanced, and so we do have some credits coming back to us. It looks like for the next 3 or 4 years, to the tune of about $300 a year, so nothing significant.
I thought you were gonna say something at the end, 300 and.
Yeah, I was looking for the good news
So
here.
the second bond was a $100,000 bond that was issued for the solar array back in July 2012.
Right,
That was a 15-year bond. We make payments of that of $10,000. It started off at as $10,000. Right now, we're paying $5,000 annually, and that ends on November 2027. The third bond was for $400,000, and that was issued for renovations and building improvements back in July 2016, and that is a 20-year bond. The annual payments on that are $20,000. The principal, and then there's interest payments as well and the interest payments go down every year, but they're approximately $7,000 a year. And the last bond number 4, was $235,000, and that was issued for the safety and security renovations. That was the doors and the windows and the cameras, I believe. And that was done in August of 2020 for 10 years. The payments on that, the principal payments are $23,500 a year. And interest is another approximately $2,000.
And we have another potential bond that we're hoping to get at some point for the elevator, which was 180 is what we were approved for. Is that correct?
I don't have that. I believe it was like 180, 200,000, something like that. Yeah.
now what happens to that if we don't use it? I don't think it can just
It
hang
just-
out.
it just
Can hang in
disappears.
limbo for however how long?
I mean, there was no timeline on
I know.
the language, but I would say if it doesn't happen in a few years, it should just die and disappear. Yeah.
And so one of the reasons of not going out to get a bond to do the flooring right now is because we already have a good amount of bonds out there. Is that your recommendation?
Yes, I mean, the benefits to a bond is that you can spread the cost over a longer period of time, which is great, but I mean, you do want to limit how many bonds you're paying off. All the ones that you have are sort of small, and I would think if we were in a better interest rate environment, that it would make sense to refinance these maybe into one bond, but that's
Yeah.
not an option at this time. Interest rates are high, so whether we go for a lease or a bond, we're going to be paying a lot of extra money in interest. The benefit to a lease as opposed to a bond is that a lease can just be approved by the board, whereas a bond needs to be approved by the taxpayers. It doesn't require a lot more paperwork, a bond.
And I apologize for not being here last time. Did you speak on the flooring?
That's what
Was
we're
Kelly
talking
here?
about.
Right, was Kelly at the last meeting?
Kelly was, and we had talked with Lewis. Well, Lewis wasn't here, but he had given us his recommendations. That there were several options. One is, and what he recommended was putting 10,000 into the repair line, I believe, and building that up so we could, with the idea that we're going to be doing the flooring at some point. And then after a few years, once it's built up, it will help pay for the deposit or what it costs to start the process. And the payments will be about that year after year for a lease, I think. Was it a loan or? is that in
It's,
some
the
way?
lease is, yeah, it's through a municipal leasing company. It works like a loan.
We could
It's
do
usually
it all
for a
at
short
once,
period,
but
5
we,
to 7 years.
but we wait to do it later after we have some money kind of ready for it, instead of doing it now where we don't have the money ready for it.
Now, would that work? Because typically, if it's left over from year to year, it disappears.
Yeah, so the thought is that we know the cost is going to be anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 a year, whether we go out the bond or lease.
Right.
And the concern was that putting that all into the budget, whether if we were to go out the bond or lease now, was going to increase the budget by too much. So we would incrementally increase the budget over the next few years so that it wasn't a hit all at once. So next year, this year we would put $10,000 in. We wouldn't go out the bond next year, but that $10,000 would be available for other building improvements that have been waiting, or it could just not be spent, and would just go into savings. And then the next year, we would add another $10,000 to the budget. So you're slowly building up that repair line. And then when we do go out to bond or lease, that we wouldn't be increasing the budget because the money was already in the budget. We would just be shifting it from that repairs line to the lease line or to the bond line.
Now, like we did up until a year or so ago, like put 25,000 into the tech or computer, that section. We haven't done it, I think, in a year or two, but is that something we can do, say 10,000, and put it into the capital expense, and then when we get a little bit, pull it out?
So by putting that into the reserve fund, I
Right.
mean, you're only putting a one-time amount in, whereas if we put it in the budget, when we look at next year's budget, that money's already in the budget, so it's already all
So it's
factored
okay to
in.
carry it over from year to year?
We wouldn't be carrying over what's not spent. We would just be increasing the budget line so that when we get to 3 years down the line, we have $30,000 now more in the repairs line. And when we do go out to bond or lease, we're not seeing a $30,000 increase in the budget because
Right.
the budget's already increased by that amount. We would just be shifting that money from the repair line to a lease line with no budget impact.
I leave
The
that-
taxpayers will be feeling that budget impact incrementally over the next few
Right,
years, but
right.
it's in smaller pieces.
I would leave that up to you because you're the manager of our money.
Any other thoughts?
What's that? Well, I would, if it was up to me, I would use surplus money and do the flooring. Get it done.
That's another option, is asking the taxpayers to use surplus money and put it into the capital maintenance fund and just
Right.
using the capital maintenance fund to pay for it. We have right now a surplus of $317,000. So anything you take from that surplus would decrease the amount of revenue you have.
Right.
But when we get the budget, we will talk a little bit more about what's happened since the last meeting, and a little bit, I have some preliminary tax rate information. So maybe we want to table this conversation,
I would.
budget conversations, if we can see where we are with the budget, and we can make some better decisions.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, on to new business, the exterior lights at Rutland Town.
Yes, I hear Tina had a problem.
What, a problem?
Did you want more exterior lights?
No, I think that they look great now. I think that some lights, we were here for Cocoa with Santa, and it was very dark that night, but I think part of the reason it was dark was twofold. One, I think a light was inadvertently left off. And then another thing that happened was the flagpole light, it's on a sensor, and the base light was shining up at the sensor, so it always thought it was daytime. So the top light wasn't going on.
Like, it's white.
So Kelly figured it out and just shifted it, and so now there's a lot of bright light out there.
Oh, good.
So I was very happy.
Green
that-
Mountain Power was here today fixing the yard light.
Yes.
Perfect,
Yep.
perfect timing.
Yeah.
Good.
And there's another solar light that's installed by the steps. I know that was a concern too. So there's another solar light down by the teacher entrance there by the gym. And then Officer Angie did a walk around with Kelly really early in the morning just to get her 2 cents on, is it safe? Is it enough light? And she said yes, especially since we got the lights fixed.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, I think the last time it was flashing, or maybe it wasn't working.
Oh, the new one was strobing,
It
yeah.
was like a strobe light,
Yeah.
yeah. Like 8th grade dance. Makes me dizzy. Yeah.
Which was still better than no light. 'Cause
Yes,
that
I
was-
mean, it was really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
So I appreciate all the diligence on that.
Good.
And then last meeting, you weren't here, Lynette, but we were talking about policy D4, which was discussing volunteers and record checks and things like that. And then how can we increase volunteerism by making a hurdle to become a volunteer easier but still safe? So one thing that Chris had mentioned was that at Fairhaven or Slate Valley schools,
Well, Slate Valley, but at Fairhaven High School.
they have an ID scanner right there that they just take the license and it gives you almost an immediate background check.
So from what they explained to me was it runs an ID against the sex offender registry and just as a quick check. So it's not a thorough background check, but it
I
just.
mean, anybody can do that, anybody can
Right.
go online and do that.
So, right, so what it was explaining to me is the reason why Fairhaven has in place is after situation they had, about 5-6 years ago, this was an increased level of security that they put in. And so anybody who walks in the building, would be if I go there, I have to do an ID scan, it just quickly gives us the green light or not. And so I think one of the things that we had discussed, and I know that we've had a few Rutland town parents who've come over to central office and have been very vocal in their displeasure in the process, and I think it was how do we streamline the process a little bit, but without compromising safety. Because I think the biggest thing is whenever Sarah or staff have a parent with their kids in any situation, want to make sure that that the person's been vetted, that we can say with as much certainty as we can that that our kids are safe. And and I think that's kind of that dance is what we have to do, because I think parents have to be a little proactive and kind of think a little bit. And I know that if all of a sudden they find out, hey, there's a field trip next week, and someone says, oh, I can get off work, but then they go to central office tomorrow and they realize there's a good chance that we may not have that background check back prior to that. I think that's where the frustration is. So would there be a way to fast track that, or and still look at background security? I know that Greg to join us tonight because when we were looking at in Corey Valley around communication, we discussed this ID scanner about whether it was something which we felt was needed for security reasons in our buildings. We ultimately decided not to, just because of cost, and we felt that with communities and just with our front office staff, it wasn't necessary at that time. But we know there are varying levels of ID scanners that can be used in schools, but there is a cost. And then we look at, does the cost really justify the 10 or 12 individuals? I think that's something that for this board to discuss and talk about. But I think, it was born out of trying to increase parent participation, but also I think some parents would like to, but it is a bit off-putting that the process is lengthy. And I know that people discuss, can't we just have a day or two where we just bring people in to do volunteers? And sure, but I also know that Christine McGiss and Debbie Dambrakis, I try to find a day where not do anything is very difficult. So it's just they're busy, each and every day managing, all of our boards, all of our buildings as well. So it's troubling as well. But
Unfortunately, I'm going to come down on no scanners, but I wouldn't, I mean, there's too much in it.
Yep. Right.
Scanner's not going to really, it's like you get a speeding ticket or whatever, that doesn't show up. That type of thing. Not everything shows up, so that's why I'm leery of just doing the scanner. But eventually, we'll have a building, and we may be able to do it when the new PD goes in, but which will help. At least they're in the town, and they don't have to try to schedule with the sheriffs or schedule with Castleton. But I still wouldn't want to do away with the fingerprinting.
So I did speak with Christine McGinnis today, and she spoke to a number of families, and it's still taking about 6 weeks. So I did put it in my August back to school letter. I've posted it on Facebook. It's been in the weekly newsletter every week, and I've reminded our faculty and staff again, just please in your monthly or weekly newsletters with your classrooms, please remind parents that, you know, we usually have a field trip. So if you would like to chaperone, to please do it. And it is a process. So it's not just meeting with central office, but then you need to make an appointment, like you said, with the sheriff's office, with Castleton. And I'm not sure how that works if they wait to run them in batches, because I've been on the receiving end of some very upset parents that why is this taking so long? So
Maybe the state of Vermont too, because we all know that they're not back to normal. Not that normal was any good.
I just want to quickly add.
Yep, go ahead.
I know that Christine, I had a conversation with her today, and she had spoken with some of the, over at Castleton, and they said that there was an issue with processing in terms of they don't necessarily process them as they come in, they kind of will wait, and then
batches or
right,
something.
so that's something
yeah.
which they said they would explore, look at, but there are no guarantees
I
there.
apologize.
We'll put it here for a couple
When we were
months.
when Rutland City doesn't do it anymore because of the employment issue, but we sent them out as soon as we took them that end of that day, they were gone. So, I mean, it's literally push a button, but.
And it very well maybe that it sits at Castleton for, you know, for a week or two before they just send a large batch in, so which only further delays the time. So.
Yeah, that's not good.
Greg?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I investigated this, and there are basically like two kind of product families that service K-12 education. They're around $625 a year. I can share my screen and show you both kind of strategies. One is from a company that really primarily does K-12 education, and there are some that actually, we actually have some of their other products, like Securely. Here, I'll show you right now. So one of them takes the strategy of the person entering the building. So that's, you know, like what Lynette was talking about. They put their government-issued ID into a scanner, which is like, you know, this little thing here. There's a little kiosk. They put their government ID into the scanner. It does a quick background check against government records and, you know, local records. And then if it comes out, they get to sign up, and they get a little ID badge printed on them as like a visitor. So that would be somebody who you want to quickly have them enter the building and do something that skips that whole other process of, you know, it's kind of a quick check. Now, I have a conference call with them later this week because the sales rep didn't know like where the background information actually came from, to your point, Lynette, and how detailed that actually is. So I'm going to speak to one of their senior sales reps to get more detail as to where they get the information. The other method is like something we can embed on the website, and beforehand they go to it and they fill out, they put their social security number. Some have the ability to take a picture of their ID, but it's mostly done by their social and all of their basic information. And then that goes out and then sends it to somebody like Christine McGinnis and processes them as being, okay to volunteer in the building, to go on the class field trip and stuff like that. So it's another method to have them quickly embedded, where they just go to the website, they fill out a web form, that check gets done by the company. And I don't have a complete price on this, but it's probably will be about $1,000 a year, depending on the amount of usage. If we did this throughout the whole SU, it would be a little bit cheaper. And the equipment costs for the building entry one. Yeah, it's like $100 for the roll, $600 for the actual ID scanner. There's a little camcorder that fits into the software, so they can take a picture of the person and print their ID badge, that kind of thing. So it's not really that expensive. But yeah, if we went SU wide, it would probably be about $1,000 per building plus equipment costs per year. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of that. Are there any questions technically about those processes? One is just really for building entry right then and there, and the other one is for longer-term volunteer signups.
Now, what are we using the volunteers? I mean, are these volunteers one-on-one, or are they,
So this is what we talked about, pardon me, last time, is that, and Tina received the same feedback, and I had asked some parents about, volunteering, coming, let's open the building, please. And a number of them has said it's just such a process to come volunteer because of making an appointment with central office, getting into the sheriff's office, going to Castleton. They're like, we basically have to take a day off and then we have to wait. So then it's kind of, I think what is considered a visitor versus a volunteer.
right?
And then, so I know chaperones for field trips, and then I wonder, so that's why Tina was gonna bring it back to the policy board.
And I think that's where it is right now.
Yeah, because it, the way I would think of if you're left alone with children.
Correct. If you get
Right.
a chance to be one-on-one.
Right, but that's not the way it's written. So if you're left alone with children, 100%, this is just my opinion, you need to pass a fingerprint and background
Right.
check. If you are
Yeah, I think the background checks are different. The volunteer
They are.
product is like a completely different product than the door entry visitor for short-term kind of thing. Like, I do think the background checks are different in each of the products. And the price kind of reflects that.
Right,
Like going
exactly.
to a third party, I think it's gonna be, going to a third party and paying for it, I think is gonna be a little bit quicker. Especially if it's like a bigger company, I think.
And now a number of our families they have to be renewed every 3 years. So some families that thought that they were on the approved list have now been notified that they need to redo their
Well, it can change in one day. So, I mean, when I used to do them, I would talk to people, because teachers the same way. Why do I have to do it? Well, yeah, I can do it today and you'll pass. Tomorrow you can get a drunk driving charge and we won't know for 3 years. So it can change overnight. But I would say that as far as safety for the kids go, I'm not so concerned about the visitors. I think there are enough people in here as far as employees. If they're doing lunch duty, there's always someone in there. Those type of volunteers, I'm not so concerned about as far as needing a background check. To be honest with you, to come in and put your driver's license in a gizmo, you're not going to catch the ones that you really want to catch. And the machine that they fill in their information, they're pretty wily. They're pretty smart. They're not going to put down anything that's going to trigger it. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's either, for true safety, it's background check. And then, other than that, there really isn't. I mean, most volunteers I think of come in and assist in the classroom. They're never alone with the children, or the cafeteria, or recess. They're not alone with the children.
That's not the way our policy reads. I think
Right.
that was the concern. So I think of like mystery
seen
readers,
that.
they're a
Right.
visitor. That's what I consider a visitor.
Right.
But then, I was talking with Tina about when we had the PTO book fair, we had volunteers that came to run that, and I was like, I don't think they're on our chaperone. Like, they didn't run that by us.
Okay.
And we did have, so I think it's not specific. I think you and I are on the same page, but that's
Right.
not the way it's written.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it yet, I don't believe.
It hasn't come back, I
Okay.
don't think.
So,
No, we'll see it Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Okay.
next Tuesday.
So I'd love if you were left alone with students, all of the, but, I mean, it's up to the policy and then I'll
Right.
implement it. In the meantime, I just keep
I mean, because if you're
reminding.
not alone, you
Like, even
really
a-
don't have much.
Even a day chaperone trip, you know, if they're not left alone,
I,
you know?
I think that we're
You're on the
originally.
bus.
Not always. A lot of them you can't even, there aren't enough
Seats, right.
You have
So
to drive,
you
yeah.
drive, and then you're with groups. You're not like one-on-one with a kid, you're with.
But what if you're with a group, and that's for me, it's like field trips, yes, because what if you are with a group? And that's
The
it.
Raptor method, and they're a company out of Texas, purport to process complete current records in hours as opposed to weeks. That's their like kind of tagline. So, you know, it seems like something where you refer to somebody to the website, and if you can keep doing it over and over and over again, it's on a membership by school basis. So I think you can process as many applications as you want. And so, like to your point, Lynette, I think you could potentially do them over and over and over and keep checking them and keep requiring them after every trip or every day that they're volunteering to run the application again. I don't know if that's the case, but you know, I could see it when I see the product demo.
Okay. I'd like to, not to continue with this, I'd like to kind of set it aside. I want to talk to the chief.
Well, I also think we should wait until we have more information what the policy committee says. But I think that you hear what our concerns are and maybe differentiating between volunteer versus classroom helper versus coach that does, you know, spend time alone. I think there's not really subcategories.
Right, well, usually, any, like the coaches are always included. I run most of the coaches around here. Coaches, employees, anybody that's on a regular basis should do, okay? If you're, or especially overnight field trip, definitely, they all have to be. But someone that's coming in to help in the cafeteria, okay, that to me, it's a very short period of time, it's an hour or two, and they're gone. That type of thing to me is more like a visitor than it is, so that I think, you know, the lighter check is fine. But like I said, I'd like to talk to the chief because I think there's a happy medium here, but.
You know, Lynette, I think, you know, you'd said about the lighter check. I think that's just something the policy committee, even though things boards have to discuss. Because I think, yeah, my role as superintendent is I just want to make sure that I can say to every single parent or guardian that with as much certainty as I can that yes, that every individual who walks into Rutland Town building or comes in contact, whether it be a, you know, volunteer in a cafeteria or, you know, chaperone like a field trip, that they have been vetted, and we said, yeah, yes, that I would feel comfortable having that individual, you know, my own daughter be around that individual.
Right.
I think that's what we just have to make sure of, is whether it be looking at, because I know Slate Valleys was really just meant to be an initial screen, was not really meant to be anything more than that. But I think as we go through this, I think there'll be some good discussions, because even as you parse out what is that minimum level of security. I know I look when I see the background checks, and I know how extensive they go in, how deep, and there are a lot of decisions I have to make of, you know, things that occurred back in 1982, and
Right.
you know, look at, so you know, it gives you a full workup on individuals, and you know, there's some tough decisions that have to be made about this, and I think we just have to make sure that, and I'll be honest, every time I look at what I really look at their filter of what I feel comfortable with this individual, with my daughter.
Right.
And that's, you know, I think that's the same thing as, and I have a very high set of expectations, a very high filter. I think it would be the same for us. And so I think I appreciate, I understand parents want that expediency, but I don't want the expediency to ever compromise security or safety of our kids. And so there has to be, I think we have to find that balance, whatever that process is, you know, so.
You know, most of them that you find that may be violators are someone that is got a lot, people trust a lot in the school, they're in the school a lot, they're around the children a lot. someone coming in saying just to do recess or just to do cafeteria, they're in and out within 2 hours. And so the probability of finding time to violate anything is greatly reduced. Whereas, and that's the ones that, yes, they still have to be vetted, but not fully vetted. Because, you know, it'd be different if, well, they're coming in for recess, but then they hang around for 8 hours a day. That's kind of, and that type of thing, you just have to watch yourselves. But, yeah, let me talk to the chief. I got a solution.
So, moving on, the ADA accessibility update. So, had spoken to Kelly about ADA doors, and he had said that he's priced out, I believe, 3 doors, and with plans to put in one near the gym. I think Chris was going to talk a little bit about ADA accessibility and the desire that we should.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just have to make sure that all of our buildings are ADA accessible, and, you know, so if there's a sporting event or something in the gym, or if there's that all individuals, you know, have access to the building facility. So just, and if there's something which is preventing that or is not, then I think we have to do our best to bring our building up to ADA code. And so, yeah.
So I thought we would have some more information. Kelly had priced out what the, you know, options were for doing 1 door or all 3 or 2. I don't know if anyone brought that tonight.
Yeah, that was on our list to do this year. To do the front, I'm not sure where the third one is. The front door was about $5,000. By the gym doors is $35,000. I preferred the gym doors, not just because of price, but that's more highly used by our community. So our hope was to do that. 3,500.
Okay.
3,500, my apologies.
Okay. 5,000, the other one's 35.
That's just the push buttons and the hydraulics, right?
Yes.
Right.
Not the doors. It shouldn't be the doors.
No, I
It's just
think the
it's
hardware
just-
fits that doors.
Right, so,
right.
so our plan was to do by the gym door this year, but we're seeing, you know, we had hot water heater, some other things, so we're seeing how things shake out. And the plan was to do that by the gym this year, and then depending on how budget shakes out, we would like to do the main door as well.
Well, if we do the main doors, you also have to change it because it isn't accessible, so you'd have to put a ramp or, isn't it a step right now?
No.
I don't think so.
Did we change that?
We did that
Yeah,
years ago.
years
We put
ago.
I walk
remember we
over
put
it
the
every
ramp-
single time and I couldn't tell you.
It's okay. I was like, wait, I don't step up.
We did that years ago.
Yeah.
Probably, it's probably why I'm tripped out there, huh?
It's light now, you can see it. So that is our hope, and our plan is to do the one by the gym doors.
I would think that would be the best because it's.
Me
and you
too.
can access the rest, but
Correct.
most everything we do is down in that area, I think. But as far as
Mostly, but the security and check-in is right here.
Right, and I
Right.
think with ADA compliance, it pertains to new buildings, you know, like legally, but you have to make within reasonable accommodations, so I thought,
And I would think too that door would be secured, so they would have to call the main office to
Correct.
say, like, we're gonna be in down here.
correct. That was the plan, and then again, hopefully next year to do the one by the main office.
That's really less than I thought it would be.
That's what it was a month ago, so. The way things are increasing in prices, it would not surprise me if it has gone up.
So I don't remember seeing that on like a wish list or what have you. Where does that come from the budget?
Just maintenance.
Just maintenance.
That would be awesome. I mean, even if you only get the one for now.
Well, that's what we
more
said.
like
Let's
Town Hall
do,
hasn't even got one.
let's do one, and then the hope that next year we'll do the other.
Awesome.
Can we revisit this when we kind of know how much money we have left in this year's? In, I guess, May-ish, June. Would that work?
Well,
Yeah.
usually Lewis closes
Yeah,
things
it's
out
before
in
then.
April.
April.
Right.
So we'll revisit this in April, maybe. I'd love to do both if we can. You can still come in.
I could hear you guys now. Oh, God. I'm gonna be like, the couple there. Oh, no, she's on tonight.
What couple are you talking about? From Muppets?
No.
The two old guys?
No.
Echoing?
That too, yeah. Now that you're mentioning that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I promised myself
that's
I'm
what it
gonna
was,
behave.
okay.
Anyone have any other comments on?
Yep, got it.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
So when do we have, like, what are you waiting for this year to start the work
For the door,
for the door? If you know you want to do it, you know it'll help make the school more accessible.
Yeah.
What are we waiting for?
just wanted to
Money?
get through the winter months a little bit to make sure things are looking good.
Yeah,
So I
it
told
probably
Kelly
wouldn't be
just-
a real good idea to put it in right now.
Yeah, I said, there were a number of things that needed to be fixed. So I
Attention
said, can we
first.
hold off? So I asked him to hold off through the winter, and he got the prices for me this fall. The guy came through, we did a walkthrough with him, and I said, let's add it to the list and kind of see where we're at January, February, which is soon.
That's just spring project.
Yeah, it really would be, awesome.
Great, thank you. All right, director's orders. Do I have any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the director's orders. You guys kill me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of minutes from 11:14. Any comments?
What'd you find, Tina?
On page 5, I wanted just to make a slight change. I don't have it in front of me, but it said something like Tina suggested 3.5% draft. Oh, thank you. Let's see here. So it says Tina suggested a 3.5% draft could be prepared and that they could do a side-by-side. I think it should also just be noted that the board agreed by consensus to see a side-by-side with that number. It wasn't just me. The board all agreed. And that wasn't really mentioned in the notes, so I just wanted to make sure that
You
was.
can take credit for it.
And then page 11, Sue Sokolowski, is that her name? It says Swarovski, like the crystals. So I just wanted to,
Oh, I think
change,
that'd be a better last name.
change her name. And then also remove Tina advised, which is also on the same page. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Thank you, Lynette. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to superintendent's report.
I don't really have a lot. I mean, it's only been a couple weeks since we last met, a few weeks with Thanksgiving break. There's just one point that I just want to bring out publicly. That's the strategic plan. Originally, we were supposed to meet February 6th. We have moved that date to March 9th. Reason being, gives the writing team a little more time to work through some things, get through a couple drafts. We did not want to rush through that. We built in a buffer when we had the schedule. We knew that there was a good chance that we'd have to push back this last meeting, but we felt, as opposed to trying to rush through the writing of this in the month of January, ready for boards in February, we just said push it back so we have January and February, considering that with break, December's always a hectic time, but January we'll kind of hit it full bore, and then February we'll have time to really kind of run this by a couple of the board members and some other people just for review. And our goal will be on March 9th to bring it back to the design team for their full review. And then if there are adjustments need to be made, we can make it at that time.
And that's still at 5 o'clock?
Still 5 o'clock at West Rutland, yes. So we'll send a reminder of that out as well when we get a little bit closer to that, so after break. So And the rest really just been working with Sarah on budgeting and just trying to get things kind of where they need to be. So,
Thank you. Thanks for updating the terms, too.
oh, yeah.
Great. And principal's report?
Sure, thank you. I was like, this was due 8 days after, school days after our meeting, so I'm like, already? I have to write a town report, Chris, and a
Yep.
board report. But we always have a lot happening here. So our 5th and 6th grade TA ambassadors led the first monthly character assembly for respectfulness. It was amazing. It's something that I've always wanted to see, to have our kids lead these assemblies. They did an amazing job. And a shout out to Kate Daly and Katie McDougall and Bailey Sanders, who's helped leading the charge, and the kids, of course. They get all the credit. I heard that PTO Hot Cocoa with Santa was a success. I unfortunately had laryngitis, no voice, which my husband and kids loved. So I did not attend, but I heard it was a great turnout, and we had some pictures that we were able to post on Facebook and on the monitor here. As Katie McDougall talked about, and Chris was able to see this when he came to visit Rutland Town School, the 7th graders are doing the Project Feeder Watch. So they've been collecting data on local birds to report to Cornell Lab. So with the help of the Rutland County Audubon Society, and I think, Tina, you had given us that name too, students observe their feeders, walk the trails to identify birds in the backyard, and they're continuing to collect some data throughout the winter. It was just so exciting to see. I know when Chris was able to pop into Mrs. McDougall's classroom, it was just so exciting. These kids were so excited and so engaged. So just thank you to Mrs. McDougall and everybody that's helped with this. I don't know, Katie, if you want to.
I just want to say, I'd never seen a group of kids as excited to look at birds as this group was. So they just, I mean, they were doing a great, Miss McDougall does a great job with that group, that class. So just, but like I said, it was just like, oh, we're watching birds, but they were into it. So it was interesting. They knew a lot about birds. So
yeah, very, very engaged. So I don't know, Katie, if you want to, not to call you out, if you want to add anything.
No, so this was supposed to be a 3-week project, and we are on week 7.
Awesome.
So, and it's not driven by me, it's been driven by the kiddos. So we actually are wrapping it up this week with another visit from Marvin Elliott from the Rutland Audubon, sharing some of his bird feeders and some of his insights. And it's just been a really cool project that I'm excited to make revisions on for next year. So kids can really focus on Vermont and the ecology that we have here. So thank you guys. And they were raving about our trail system. So Sarah, I want to sit down with you and talk to you about that, because they just said it was the most incredible trail system they've seen in any school. So kudos to who's ever really developed that as well.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Katie. I think just thanks to our community and our voters, right? We have this beautiful facility out there. And the volunteers that have come in, the visitors, have just really complimented not only Mrs. McDougall, but our students. And to me, those soft skills are just as important as academics. Polite, respectful, opening doors, so proud, so proud.
That's awesome.
Can I just
Sure.
add to that? I went and bought seed at Garland's Agway on the weekend of the Audubon, and my wife knows a couple of people down there, and they were singing the praises of the teacher. So congratulations to you. All the people that were down there working were just raving about the program and what they're doing. So.
Yeah.
Talk about expense.
Sharing that.
Yeah, and I think a number of parents have also reached out to me to say, my kid wants to be outside looking at wildlife, even this chilly weather, like super excited to look at things and not on video games, inside, on his phone. Like this has been a huge turnaround. So, yeah. It's been great.
I mean, it's just one of those little things that no one ever stops and takes a moment to look at the feeders or look at the birds or listen to know what's what. But once you get tuned into it, it's a lifelong thing. It's just like
And to identify the birds,
Yep.
my father-in-law was a huge bird man, and he could just tell by sound what the bird was. So it's like those are life skills.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So middle school chorus, they performed at the Vermont Holiday Festival on December 2nd. We had our K4 concert that was held last Wednesday, which was wonderful, just to welcome these kids back for their first, winter holiday concert. It's been a few years. The 7th and 8th grade student council is sponsoring 2 children's for Tatum Totes. It's a local family here, so they'll get items for students that are going into DCF custody. And of course, the 7th and 8th grade, or the 8th grade, pardon me, still does their service learning project to adopt some families. Just an update, I'm sure everybody knows this, there's been a lot of absences from both students. I think we had about 40 plus students out at certain days last week. I'm thinking, what is that for a percentage? It's about, 12 to 13% of our students. Friday, we had 15 teachers and staff out. Let me tell you, I spoke to Chris on Thursday, and he's like, you got to open, you got to make this happen. And I just cannot thank our teachers and staff enough. Every single person was saying, what can I help with? What can I do? I have to leave for a doctor's appointment, but I figured this out with my team to combine this class and this class. It just speaks volumes to the climate here, I think, just that everybody's willing to pitch in. We have large classes. I can't put 40 kids in a room. When I've talked to other principals that I network with, they're like, we'll just double up. I'm like, I can't get 50 kids in a room. We have large class sizes. They're like, oh, what are you going to do? But it's really from custodians, secretaries, myself, guidance. We are all just, we're doing it. So it is hard.
If you didn't run a germ factory up here.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I don't even want to go in that germ place. Yeah, so in case you're wondering why I don't visit a lot.
Well, I won't say, but I did the day before I got sick, and then soon after I lost my voice, I had a student that sneezed.
In your mouth.
As I was like, in my mouth almost. I was like, it was like, all over me.
We didn't have all these plates. We
Been there.
didn't have all this.
Right, I mean, we all have.
Oh, we didn't have it when we wore the.
And they're like, oh, sorry, Miss Sutz, I'm
Masks.
wiping it down my shirt. I'm like, it's okay. So again, just a huge thanks to everybody. And to parents, I've had a few parents that are like, I can only sub once a month. I'm like, if you sub once a year, I'll take it. So thank you to Ellen Coyle, who's been working hard to get us subs. And our maintenance are doing a great job cleaning. The flu, RSV.
The flu is really coming on strong. I think we're at moderate now. Which is for this time of year is very high, so just a heads up.
Yeah, it's here. Hiring update, as I mentioned, we are always looking for substitute teachers and nurse substitutes, and Marie Gilman is still actively looking for tapestry, still actively looking. Kelly had updated a few things on building matters. We have some backdrop curtains that were installed in the stage, a new flag outside, some solar lights, as I'd mentioned, by the gym exit and the preschool exit. Burnout lights in the gym were replaced. And Kelly, I say you have to talk basic to me here because he has this technical language. So type A LED lights were installed. I believe he spoke to Lewis about this in one of the elementary classrooms. So he tried one of them out in the gym and he really liked the light. So the cost is about $150, but the expected savings for energy for the year is $150. Right. So they're going to do one room and then go from there. Gym resurfacing, that will happen over December break. It's one of my favorite things is when the gym floor is all shiny and new. And then I have some dates here, and I'll add a few more. So we have the 3rd grade field trip to Billings Farm, which is always exciting, tomorrow. 5 through 8 grade concert this Wednesday. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend as my daughter has her concert the same night, so I will miss that. We have our spelling team meeting, which is great. We have a number of kids of all grades that have joined our spelling bee, so thank you to the board for supporting that. 4th grade trip to the Spartan Arena, Rainbow Club meeting, Spirit Week is next week. I'm really excited to welcome the Rutland Town seniors back for luncheon, so we'll have the jazz band entertain them. And then we have the deadline coming up for the talent show. We have the 21st, our character assembly, and then we have early release on the 22nd. And then break.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, personnel. Vacancies were listed in your packets. Is there any comments? Next up, chair's report, executive committee meeting highlights. The minutes from the GRCSU were in the packet. We're still trying to figure out policy formation. And actually, for that reason, I did forget to mention, I don't think we should discuss A1 today, because they're still trying to figure out
Oh, yeah, it's not
policy. So I forgot to take that off. I meant to.
ready. Too many opinions on that one.
Yeah. But we will be discussing it Wednesday. So to be continued.
Yay.
Other than that, I didn't really have a lot to add. We did, I will just mention that we had a teacher listening session on Tuesday the 6th. We had, I think, 15 or so staff
So
come.
sorry. You'll have to fill me in on if anything.
It was just a very nice, social, get to know, the staff a little bit. It was open to teachers and staff. So we were able to just chat and kind of hear how things are going and get to know them a little bit better. So, but it was nice to have, and hopefully we can do it again some other time. So with that, on to policy. So we have 2 second reads, both G4, selection of library materials, and H3, advertising in schools, public solicitations, and student fundraising. Did anyone have any comments or concerns on those? On G4, I just had one comment, it's just a formatting, I believe. There's a couple little things. Space between inquire, comma, and to study. There should be a space there. Do you see it? Right here. Should be a space right there. I'm sorry. And then I and J, because at least on my paper, are online. See, they're not lined up. These are an extra indent in.
Indented.
So yeah, so I and J just have to be brought back out to be in line with the rest. Everything else looked fine.
I would hate to have you as an English teacher.
I think my grandmother would appreciate that comment. She was an English teacher. All right. And then, any motions?
I'll make a motion to adopt the G4 and H3.
With the formatting?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Lynette. All right, so we took A1 off of the list. So then we have 4 first reads. We'll do them one at a time. First one is D11, public complaints and personnel. Anyone have any comments on that? So if no one else had anything to say, I would like to mention, I believe it's the second paragraph. It says compliant instead of complainant.
Complainant.
On the second paragraph here. Let's see, compliant.
Oh, down here.
Yes. That one. And then just to go in line with all of our other policies, it also says he, she, further down. Sorry, I didn't have it printed out right here.
Go
And,
to the,
I would just recommend that it be changed to they, like we've been doing with all the other policies. Anyone else on that one? Okay. E8, naloxone administration for opioid overdose. On the second paragraph, I said to change of to or under policy. So the second paragraph under policy. It's right here, to the use of the, no. Sorry, I really need to get these printed one of these times.
Do you want to look at my copy, Tina?
I actually have it on my computer. I'm not really sure where that was actually. I also thought on page number 2 of that one, the last line where it says prevention resources to the overdose victim, I was thinking that maybe "and" should be victim and family as appropriate. Not victim, comma, family, but victim and family as appropriate. Or and or. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to just have a comma there. Just as
Or family? Or
yeah, victim and or family.
And or family?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try to find that other part I found. It was just changing of an of to or, but I'm not sure where it was now. Sorry about that. I'll look that up. And then, anyone else on that one? And then we have F26, which is students who are homeless. Any other comments on that one? I had a question about the transportation from students' school. It says something that that our school district would give them transportation from the student's school of origin, but it never says, which is true, but it never says that they'd, so wouldn't it be from either their school of origin or the school that they go to? So like if they live in Rutland town, we would give them transportation to their school of origin
So,
or to our school.
so it's the McKenna-Venti Act.
Is that how it
So
works?
the McKenna,
Like an evento, yeah.
yeah, so, let's just, as an example, a student moves to Brandon. They
From
buy-
our school.
From our school. They've
Okay.
been here and now they are displaced and considered homeless in Brandon. So their school of origin is Rutland Town. So we are responsible for providing transportation and we would split the cost with Brandon and Rutland Town. So either we would reimburse mileage and we would both pay that, or we would bring them to and from school because we're their school of origin.
Because with that act, they get to complete a school year here.
Correct, because the point of that law is that you want to keep consistency for the children so they can
Right.
remain at their school of origin.
So transportation will be provided to and from the student's school of origin at the request of the parent, but would it also be provided to, like if they lived in Rutland Town, but they moved to Rutland Town, but their school of origin is Brandon. So we would help pay for them to go to Brandon. But if they chose to go to our school, we would also.
If they chose to go to our school, they can. So they have the choice to either enroll where they're now residing or travel to their school of origin.
So we would give them transportation to either the school of origin or the school or our school.
Well, we provide transportation to our students right now.
Right, that's the best way to put it, so.
Right.
I mean, yeah, in the past it would have helped us, but I'm just gonna shut up now.
Okay, so this states here that we would give them transportation to their school of origin, but it's assumed then that if they went here, we would also give them transportation. It just doesn't say that.
Right, and currently we provide transportation to all students, but if that were to change, then the exception would be for a student that's homeless.
Because this doesn't exactly say that.
It's, I think, as clear as it can be.
This is, this language is directly from the VSBA model policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just confused because it's like,
of origin.
we'll give you transportation to school of origin, but not your school.
Right, so if
You know,
they're
like,
living
in-
here, they would, if
It
we
was,
offer-
it's just kind of assumed because we give it to all students anyway. Okay.
Right.
That's what I was just trying to understand.
And I like this better, just let me say, because the way it was, I guess, before this, if they're homeless, they could pretty much go anywhere they want. And so this cuts out a lot of that.
Yeah. But it also never mentions just 1 year. You mentioned that just now. But this doesn't say just for a year.
So that's under the law, though, right?
Correct,
So they can continue for the remainder of the school year, but,
But what happens
They
next
could,
year?
they would appeal
It
and be
depends on where they
denied
are.
if they appealed.
Right.
Okay. So does this say just for the year?
No.
Just, it doesn't have to, this
No.
policy? Because the law,
Yeah,
trumps the policy.
okay.
Some of their laws they hold to, and some they don't.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Last one is H2, community use of school facilities. I'm just gonna get this up on my screen.
just so you know, it was sent back by Wellsprings already, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any of their comments to add? What does CF mean in 1B? Does anyone know? It says meetings by employees, professional organizations comprised of school district employees, and then in parentheses, it says CF master agreement. Is that supposed to be like example
The
or?
association can use
Is
it.
it
I think
called-
it's in the master agreement, the association can use our buildings.
But, right, but what does CF mean?
It might just be a legal thing that was copied over instead of saying EG, so.
Oh, you think it should say E EG?
Well, no, I think that this was just copied straight from someone else, so I don't know the origin of the CF, to be honest. I can,
Could you find out when you,
Yep.
when you guys go? And then how does our board feel about the change from may to shall? On the last page. It's the one part in red.
Sorry, I don't have it with me.
So it says, all users shall be required to demonstrate adequate insurance coverage and shall agree to hold the district harmless from any and all liability by submitting a liability release and waiver form. So it had been changed from all users may be required
Right, I'd
to
like shall.
shall. So that would be like,
They
the
have to.
right, so that would be, for an example, a PTO group, do they have,
They're through the school, so they'd be set, they'd be different.
how are they through the school if they have their own separate?
kind of falls under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
It still does? Okay.
It's kind of a conjoining organization, but.
Right.
I know that when I spoke with Chris Leopold about, and this policy actually has been, I think, going on 2 years now, being kicked back and forth, and it really is around the idea that from a liability standpoint, we look at it in terms of anyone who uses this facility. We live in a litigious society, and while we may think that we have good relationships with our, communities, that if something were to happen, that relationship doesn't really prevent someone from suing. And so therefore, when we look at someone who's using this facility, we have to make sure that we are legally covered with that. And I think when I spoke with Chris Leopold about this, he had said that if we wanted to use the may, but then we have to really try to discern between low impact and high impact, and that's very difficult to do because I said it from a superintendent's perspective. I'm going to identify everything as a high impact, which means because I'm not going to, you want to be overly cautious and require, we do know that it is burdensome for, if a family wants to have a birthday party here, but, that they would have to technically provide insurance to use the facility.
So what kind of insurance would that look like? Would that be their own personal liability?
Well,
or-
other districts have set different thresholds. They have actually have a grid, they break out in terms of, so like a birthday party, here's the max threshold you need to require for in terms of insurance, or here's what you need to have. So, we could provide information such as that if we needed to, so just, but I think it's really looking at, we're not trying to limit access, but we have to make sure that we're being responsible for their access, so just, it's tough. I mean, so.
Society is
Trying to
generally,
picture kids having a birthday party at a school. Never
Well, that would be my worst nightmare as a kid, to be honest.
well, unless,
Well, I thought you
you know,
loved me,
unless we
you know,
have
so-
like the ice rink or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I guess
Right,
that's
but-
true.
You're
But
going back
people
to
are so
school.
litigious that,
So what, so we have insurance on our ice rink though? Because it's open to the public, right?
it would fall
How does
under
that
our
work?
general. I mean,
Our
it's not
general,
like we're, right.
Any property the school owns is covered under our insurance.
It's like when other people come in here, like AA, they have to produce
Insurance.
insurance certificate
If
for
they have like
us.
a AAU tournament, right? In the gym or.
Right, and most large groups that use will have like a insurance, so I think it really is in some of, like I said, in some of our other schools in the SU, some of our smaller communities where the school might be the only facility that's available, that's where they're having some issues with this idea that we're gonna require families to provide insurance, but like I said, that's something for the boards to consider.
I think the only one I can really think of here was the men's basketball, the get-together men's basketball league. Well, that's fine, but you have to have proof of insurance because
Softball league, I remember you had said that.
that too, yep.
So should that be like on our facilities use form then?
Well, it's not policy yet.
Right, but if it still goes to policy, wouldn't that?
It's not in there because it should be from years
So,
ago.
well, we're still waiting for, once this policy is adopted, hopefully by the end of this year,
Okay.
then we'll go into just proceed
Okay.
based on that language. Yeah.
Because Chris had updated our facilities use forms. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if it has that on there. So.
So, okay. So we'll just not finish discussing it now because it's coming back anyway.
It's coming back, and I know that this is going to be and I think this is something which I think as SU board, we're going to have to eventually just decide, because this is being kicked back where there are some people who feel strongly around the may. There are others who feel strong that, the shall or the will, and so people are kind of digging their heels in. And I think it's eventually going to have to, maybe we'll discuss the SU, but I think we also have to look at in terms of, what that vote is, and what that looks like, and not everyone's going to be happy with the eventual, but we have to come to an agreement. We can't just, like I said, we've been operating under old policy for years, and this really has been going on for a better part of a year and a half, 2 years, around this one part. It's around this one word, and so, and I understand the strong feelings behind this, but I think we also have to look at just, like I said, we're not trying to ever limit access, but we have to make sure we're
Well, it does make it very difficult to have like a open gym night or a charity event for Girl Scouts. Well, yeah. Well, Girl Scouts has a
They have a one, yep. They should have them.
Yeah, the big organization should, but it's like the more the small community groups that want to use it, it just makes it.
Well, I think we also have to, you have to, understand that when you open up for one community group, you open up for all community
Right.
groups too. You can't restrict access, and
Right.
so, and what, someone's going to view one movie, another person can come and view another movie. So I think we just have to look at where we're at. I mean, obviously it is a community use facility, but as I said, another board meeting, if I wanted to use facility up, where I live, I would have to fill out forms, I mean, public buildings, yes, I'm a citizen, I can use a public building, but there are forms and there are certain things that I have to, fall under. I can't just
Well, it's-
show up, I mean, so.
It's like what you said earlier, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yep.
And when we first started having the conversation about this, we all talked about how our communities are different and how our needs are different and how maybe Rutland Town, they won't come here, but they will go to Wells, they will go to, Pulteney or stuff like that. So it's like,
It wasn't that long ago we had, like, the senior citizens wanted to come and use the gymnasium for exercising and stuff like that. The bottom line is you have to look out for your taxpayers. An accident is an accident. Something could happen to anything, but you don't want Rutland Town and their taxpayers, the citizens, responsible to pay these humongous sums because something happened at a non-school event, whether it be basketball, whatever. You've just got to protect the town, and that's basically what you're doing here. You want the people here. We want them to be able to use it, to see it, fall in love with it, but we have to be physically responsible too. Okay, that's coming back
Thank
at
you.
us.
Moving on, finance.
All right. So let's handle announced tuition first. In the packet was the Rutland Town announced tuition recommendations. It was one page. So each year we have to set what tuition we're going to charge for residents attending for non-residents attending Rutland Town School. Because you are K-8, you need to set two separate rates, an elementary and a secondary rate. So on the sheet, I've listed what your current rate is, as well as what some other schools in our SU and area are charging. My recommendation for FY24 for elementary school, right now you're charging $15,000 for tuition. I'm recommending a 3% increase, which would bring us to $15,500. And then for secondary, you're currently charging $16,500. My recommendation is to increase to $17,000.
Does Rutland Town have to match the other GRCSU schools?
You don't have to, no. You don't get a lot of tuition students, so it doesn't have a big impact on your budget either way. I have tried to keep the rates the same just for simplicity, but you can deviate. You don't have to take my recommendation.
I'll make a motion to go ahead with a recommendation of $15,500 for elementary and $17,000 for secondary.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Lynette.
I know. I've given up.
I know you
They're
should.
not close enough for me to kick them.
Just letting you get it all in for the next few months.
Yeah, well, thanks,
Lots of
yeah, okay.
motions.
So next we'll go into budget, and then I know that will branch out to the debt conversation and bond and stuff like that. So we're looking at the third draft today. That was in the packet. So there's a few changes that went into the budget, and I know you met last month, and you reviewed the second draft, and there was some decisions or some that were made by the board as far as what you wanted to see, and those are not reflected in the budget, but there is a sheet for executive session that we'll discuss, which reflects the proposal from Sarah that would get us to where you wanted to be. So included in this budget, just a few increases. We updated the assessments with the approved SU budget. I do notice a typo just on that summary of changes. That top gray line should be draft number 3, not
Okay.
draft number 2.
I was wondering.
So updated assessments with the approved SU budget. That was a $19,000 increase. So at the last SU board meeting, they approved the SU budget. Central office budget did not change. The special ed budget changed by approximately $70,000. We just added a special ed teacher to that budget. The budget was still down SU-wide, but that increased costs did increase the cost over the last draft that we had reviewed. So Rutland Town's portion was $19,000. There were some tuition adjustments since the last draft. We have received at this point, hopefully, all invoices for secondary schools. So there was some subtraction, some additions, but the net was 3 more secondary students, which resulted in approximately $32,000 increase for secondary tuition. And then the biggest increase was Stafford budget. So the Stafford did approve a budget of 6.46% increase in their tuition rate. In addition to that, there was an increase in your tech FTEs. So the Stafford, or it's actually the whole tech expense, is based on a 6-semester rolling average. So they look at how many students are attending over 6 semesters going back. So this semester is the last of the 6. So there's this semester, there's 2 from last year, the 2 from the prior year, and then 1 from 2 years ago. And they take an average over that to come up with a total FTE that you're paying for. So Rutland Town's 6-semester rolling average is 13.13 for next year. And so that is a 2.74 FTE increase. Stafford did set their budget at $19,960, which I mentioned was a 6.46% increase. So that increased your expense budget by $67,000. Total expense is up since the last draft by $118,000 for a total increase of $550,000 or 5.96%. And as I mentioned, the info regarding the board's requested percent target will be discussed in executive session because it does involve some personnel-related issues.
Okay.
Any questions on that before we talk about tax rate? Alright, so this is, you pass that around, this is hot off the presses today. So I just want to start with a disclaimer that some of these items in here are estimates, so this can change, but just so that we have something to go by. So what you have in front of you is the steps in calculating the tax rate. So the first line is we look at our total expense, and so as I just mentioned, our total expense is up by 5.96%. And then we look at our education spending. Education spending is your total expense minus local revenues. So you take your total expense, you subtract any tuition revenue, surplus revenues, interest income, stuff like that. Anything other than property taxes gets deducted to come up with your education spending. Right now, your education spending is up by 6.38%. The next step in the calculation is looking at equalized pupils. That is a 2-year average of your ADM. ADM is your average daily membership. So that's a count that's done at the beginning of the school year. Equalized pupils, it's a 2-year average, but it's also weighted based on the level of instruction. So like pre-K students are weighted differently than elementary school students, and secondary students are weighted differently than elementary school students. So a positive is your equalized pupils did jump from 507 to 523, which is a 3.17% increase. So the more equalized pupils, it's going to lower your cost per pupil. This is a good news number. Yeah, this is a preliminary number. Hopefully, it doesn't change too significantly. This just came out today. Hopefully, we'll have more numbers by the next round. But like I said, hopefully, it doesn't change too significantly. Ed spending per equalized pupils is right now $18,044, which is a 3.12%. So that just takes your education spending divided by your equalized pupils to get that ed spending per pupil. The next step is looking at the property yield. I don't know if anyone read the tax commissioner's letter that came out on December 1st, but he outlines what this number is made up of. So currently, the state is sitting with $64 million in surplus in the ed fund. This yield, the proposed yield by the tax commissioner, which is $15,479, is a 16.26% increase over last year. As the yield increases, it brings down your tax rate. So you want to see an increase in the yield. This is also very good news, but it's also right now a big variable because we don't know
Huge.
if the legislators will use all of that surplus to bring down the yield.
Yeah.
The basis for the yield is, again, using that surplus. It's also considering, right now, they're factoring that statewide education spending is going to increase by 8.5%. So that's pretty significant. You're not at 8.5, so right now you're under that average statewide. So this could be so if the legislators decide not to use that full surplus, it could impact that yield and lower it, which would then drive up your tax rates. So we do know that last year that the state had a surplus of approximately $100 million. They used about a third of it to
I thought they used more than that.
Well, they used about a third of it to increase the yield.
Okay.
They
yeah.
used about a third of it to fund universal meals, and then they used another third of it to fund other miscellaneous projects. The universal meals was a one-year commitment. We don't know what the legislators will do with it this year, but there is the potential that they'll use more surplus funds to fund that, or they'll push it onto local boards, or they can just cancel it. We don't know until they start meeting. We've also been told that to not expect further ed fund surpluses in the future, especially to this size.
That's what they said last year.
I'm only relaying the
I
message
know,
that
I know, I'm sorry.
Apparently, a big part of the surplus had to do with special ed, so. So using the full yield, which is what I'm using the tax commissioner's recommendation. We take the yield, we take our edge spending divided by the yield. We get an equalized tax rate of $1.16, which is an 11.3% decrease in the tax rate. The other big variable at this time is the CLA. That's your common level of appraisal. That compares the assessed value of your home to the fair market value of your home. We all know that the real estate market has been pretty hot over the last few years, starting to slow now. CLA is based on a 3-year average. Those numbers come out on December 15th, so we should have an idea of what that looks like. Last year, I think we received them on like the 18th or something like that. So when the CLA is at 100%, it means the fair market value of your home is equal to the assessed value. As the CLA goes down, that means your fair market value is increasing above the assessed value. So you were at 96% last year, which means that the fair market value of your homes was about 4% higher than the assessed value of your home. This could change. It is a 3-year average, so last year I think we only had about 1 year of, I think, inflated values. This year we'll have 2 years of inflated values. So I really don't know where that number will go.
I would imagine the CLA is gonna go down.
I would anticipate a decrease.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how far of an increase.
Exactly, yep.
So right now I have your adjusted tax rate at $1.20, which is I'm keeping your CLA flat from last year until I have an idea. I can't even guesstimate what it will go to, so I'm just leaving it flat. So if it stays flat, you would have an adjusted tax rate of $1.20, which would be an 11.3% decrease. By the time you approve your budget next month, 2 out of the 3 variables should be pretty solid numbers. So the equalized pupils should be solid, and the CLA will be solid.
Right.
The only variable that will remain is the property yield, which doesn't usually get decided until after town meeting day. So that we would be going based on estimates at the time that we vote. As I mentioned earlier, none of the changes that Sarah and I and Chris reviewed based on the board's directive are included in this budget. So any changes that we make to the budget would further affect this tax rate numbers.
Well, that's good news.
Any questions? Earlier today, we started talking about surplus. So right now, the full surplus is in this budget. So if the board was considering not utilizing that full surplus and pushing some of that into a reserve fund, that would require an item on the ballot, and that would change these tax rate estimates. It's not, I think it's probably a good idea to consider that, especially considering that we're looking at a tax rate decrease, and we, like the state, we don't anticipate surpluses continuing, especially
Right.
to this degree. And if we were to say end this year, break even, zero, next year, if we use that full surplus in this year's budget, and then the next year, this year we end with a zero, no surplus, no deficit, we'd be looking at a $300,000
Increase automatically.
decrease in revenue for the following year. So that's the bad news about surpluses. It helps you that year, but then the next year you're in the hole. So I would recommend, knowing that we have projects on the horizon that we're talking about, whether it be the second floor, or whether it be flooring, or doors, or lighting, whatever, that we look at taking a piece of that surplus and putting it on the ballot.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of that surplus put aside for flooring, towards the flooring project. But also, if we got an idea of what the exterior, even if it's the fold-out emergency like you see in New York City, how much that would be.
The cost, yeah.
Yep. I have no idea what that would be, but, I mean, we've got to have it regardless. And I think that's something that we would need. Even if we go back out to bid for the elevator, we're still going to need that access. And then the rest, once we have the access, exit,
Well, maybe a plan for the access
go
would help us
forward.
get the bid too.
yeah. So if we could get a price on that. I know it could be in the building, meaning stairway, or outside. I think there's a huge difference, because if you put it inside, the building costs are gonna be astronomical. I don't like it outside, because I could just see the hooligans using it now, but
I didn't quite hear all that.
I was saying, I think cost-wise, if we were to do interior stairwell, okay, for a second, it would be a lot more expensive, excuse me, than doing an exterior type that, like New York City, the fold-down type. I think that would be a lot less expensive. I know we can lock it up and up so that nobody can get on it. But at least if we get an idea how much, I think, like Billy said, I think it'll help get somebody to bid on the elevator too. I mean, regardless of what we do, we're gonna need it.
Right, so my thoughts of that is spending that money on a stairwell that'll eventually be tore out to put the correct stairwell in. Or are you thinking about doing the correct?
We've we have to have two. We got the one we have now, but we have to have a second
Yeah, I
one.
know we have to do the one on the other side, the back entranceway, the specials wing. But do we look at doing that shell and stairwell? Or we talking about a temporary thing?
I'm not talking temporary,
Right.
because even if it's exterior and it's one of those type that, the folding down one from the outside, That's not temporary.
Well, yeah, it would be, because the one that's in the drawings is a regular steel cement stairwell going up to the second floor with mortar brick.
Right.
Walls
That's
and
gonna be,
roof.
yeah. See, that would be awful expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, if you do something like that, that's more of a temporary thing, because you'd have to do that, what's in the drawings, to make it a permanent.
It also depends on what the use will be. If
Right.
it just be for emergency use only, then exterior steel, like a steel grate would suffice, but if it's going to be another entrance.
Or you could do
I
the
would just
stairs and
use
not put the
that-
wall up, is what you're saying,
No,
right?
Right, I just want an emergency exit, which is that outside expandable
Just do the
one.
original stairs with the doorway, and then
Right,
when we do the addition, where we do the, if we do that, do those up there, we close it in. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure. I don't,
Well, I think that's all part of the,
right,
what you envision the second floor
Right,
becoming.
right,
you know,
okay,
so-
yep.
But I think I understand what Jeff is saying, is if we're gonna spend, say, $60,000 on putting up a steel, is that, are we just throwing that $60,000 away for, like, 3 years from now, we have to just tear it down and
Right.
then build another one? So if that's part of, the overall vision of the second floor, that we actually have an exterior, like enclosed stairwell, that you just take that $60,000 and just apply it towards building that, correct, Jeff? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah.
I mean, and that,
we just need prices so that we can see, because if we get that exterior, the secondary stairwell, we might be able to find someone to do the elevator. But we need the prices.
I don't know that you'll have prices by the time we have to approve a budget. I mean, it's gonna be,
A guesstimate?
Kelly may be able to do a guesstimate. Just for information, so like 100,000, if we were to take 100,000 of that surplus and put it into the reserve fund, it would have a 1% impact on the tax rate. So, taking $100,000 out and leaving everything else the same would make our tax rate down 10.3% instead of down 11.3%.
I've never seen a double-digit decrease,
Right.
ever.
Well, I don't think that's gonna
I know
happen,
we're
because
not there yet.
CLA,
I know.
CLA is
I
gonna
agree.
drop.
I agree, but I'm just like saw that on, I'm like, oh my
yeah,
goodness.
no, I love it, I wish I could depend on it, but the
That's-
CLA,
right.
I think we're gonna really be hit hard. So that's my idea anyways.
No, I agree with that. We should get prices for that. Because even if, like down the road, if we wanted to do the different ladder well, like inside or whatever, we can still keep that, the metal one up there as like,
Oh, we
if
could-
there really was a fire on the
we could do
second
this,
floor.
we could do put the stairways up the way it's supposed to be done, and then do a wood framing to close it in, if we do want to do, down the road.
Yeah, I hear you, yep.
Yeah.
Did you have an amount on that you were? No.
I have no idea what the cost would be for the stairwell. So if you do 30 towards the floor project,
Was it floor 30 or 40? Can't remember.
I thought we were gonna try to save 30.
The
So
flooring.
the flooring project as a whole
Right, that's huge. Can't do that.
was significant. So we were talking about putting money into the budget. I'm not sure really what you're referring to.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry. I
Are we
thought-
talking
I
about
thought you
putting
were-
money into the repairs line, or are we talking about funding the whole project?
I thought you were suggesting taking the, putting it on the ballot, but taking the money from the surplus and using some of that for the flooring. What was your recommendation?
So we already increased the budget by $10,000, the repairs line, in anticipation of going that direction, of building that up so that 2 years down the line, we can do that bond. And the other option that we were gonna talk about was putting the money from the surplus into a capital maintenance fund and funding the projects in bigger chunks. I mean, I believe.
Well, you had shown us that it made sense to do it all at once because it would save money.
We would save, I think,
No.
130,000 for the project as a whole.
Right. But you had suggested waiting a few years till we had that money kind of built up. So then when you added the surplus idea into it, I thought that that meant you were speeding up the process. But you were just making moves so that we were more flexible later.
Yeah, I mean, putting the money into the reserve fund gives us more options down the road for many different projects. I mean, we could put a down payment on the flooring project and make it cheaper and spread that cost over less years. We can work on other projects for the second floor, whether it be the stairs or ceilings and stuff like that, as well as some of the other projects that we talked about, Sarah
the
talked about
doors.
earlier today, like the doors. The capital maintenance fund would give us all of the options for all of those items.
So do we need a motion to do that? Gentlemen,
Do we need a
if we want to make a ballot, right? I can't.
You wanna wait till we get some idea of prices maybe? Before we do that?
That's fine.
I mean, if Kelly comes back and says, well, the second stairwell is gonna be at least 100,000.
But it still gives us flexibility for any project, whether it's.
I mean, I'd like to
flooring or-
see it on
I-
the ballot, yes.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking for.
I just don't have a figure for it.
Well, Lewis's
I thought 100.
recommendation was 100. Is that right?
Well, 100
No,
was
that was I was just
I was
throwing
just
that
giving
out.
a number.
Yeah.
So the amount of the surplus was 317,000 from last year.
And there's many different ways you can go about it. So you can ask the taxpayers to do a dollar amount, and you could ask them to do an up to a percentage. So like I know Corey Valley put on their ballot last year to allow them to put up to 50% of their surplus into a capital maintenance fund and up to 20% into an athletic reserve fund. So that gave them the flexibility to decide at the time that they were deciding how much to go in there. They could have done 10% or they could have done 50%. And,
So it's not a one-time thing, it's a,
well, their language was the one-time thing, so that was the next point. So, they're gonna do that again this year. They're talking about doing that again this year. They haven't approved anything yet, but adjusting the language so that they have that ability to do it on future surpluses as well.
I don't think Rutland Town citizens will go for it, huh?
Can we take surplus money and pay off a bond?
With taxpayer approval.
Right.
Or with, yeah.
And that
Yeah, but then,
too,
Yeah, but some of those interest rates are really low, right?
Right.
So if we then
You're
find
better off,
ourselves needing to,
I'd rather ask them outright for a dollar amount to be put into the projects fund.
Instead of percents.
With the tech fund, right? Isn't that what you mentioned before? Didn't we used to have that? Like 25,000 every year went towards,
And the board just had to have that motion to move
To move
that
it.
25, like right now, we would say put 25,000 into.
didn't we used to call it like cash to open or something like that?
No, that 317,000 is considered cash to open for next budget.
Gotcha, okay, okay.
We haven't put money into the tech funds since I've,
Right, well, I just, that we used to.
Quite a while. Well, we had to because we were playing catch-up
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah. But, no, I'd like to see whether it's 100 or whatever. That's why I said I can't really give you a figure because I have absolutely no idea. And like Jeff was saying, is it gonna be bricked in? Are we gonna enclose the outside with wood?
I don't think you need to decide on a number. I don't think you should decide on a number tonight. I think we should wait until we
Wait till we have
have
more
the
final.
CLA, because that's
Okay.
I think that's the number that's gonna have the biggest impact that we have.
And we'll definitely have that for next meeting.
And we have the other stuff to talk about in executive session, so I think once you have those pieces, at the next meeting, you can look at approving both the budget and the warning, or the ballot language for that other article at the same time.
I lost my schedule. Do you remember when the pre-town was meeting?
It's not even on it's not on their calendar yet. I've been looking.
On
I was
whose-
gonna ask you tonight if you knew.
Clerks, like the
Select board?
towns. Yeah, it's not on their public
I think
website.
I think we're the ones that set it last year because the date they set was when Chris had to be at 3 other towns or something.
So which would be, what, January 9th?
January 9th?
Something like that, yeah. I was just out of curiosity.
We
I
go
was wondering
first,
too.
so we could do that first.
So
and
that's
then-
right, we go first this
Yeah.
year.
Yes. Yeah, but were we remote last year? Yes, we were remote last year. I remember.
Yeah,
Last minute though, I feel like. I don't remember
Yeah.
if it was.
both we did
Yeah.
remote, pre-town and
It was a
town.
long night.
Yeah, because we were second.
Yeah.
Well, we're first.
But can we set that we want it that night or not?
I think, Chris, nobody else has set theirs, have they?
Yes, Corey Valley and Well Springs have dates set, but theirs in February,
Oh, okay.
so,
All right.
so there's
Well,
a
we
week,
can decide
there's a
that
week.
next-
week
next
We
before.
can't really do it at our January meeting because we still haven't approved the budget.
Right.
Right, that's what I mean.
Approve and then,
Yeah.
just move right into it.
Yes, yes, it may have to be a different date.
So maybe in February meeting?
We've
Does it have to be in January?
No, it always has been, but we're, I don't know what we're doing.
You know
this year.
when their Rutland Town Select Board meetings are held?
They're usually on Tuesday.
Good thinking.
Not by me.
Well, in the past, you haven't approved the budget to that pre-town meeting.
Right, but we
But
have
we
like,
have, we're closer than we are now.
right. I mean, we're not like
And
printing
we can't
things.
move it back a week because that would be Martin Luther King Day.
Correct, and I currently, right now, Corey Valley has a meeting on that date, which I'm gonna try to reschedule.
I mean, we could shoot for like January 23rd. That would be like when we used to have 2 meetings.
That Monday.
That would be that Monday. Let's see here, December. Six,
23rd would be fine with me.
6, 20, the 3rd, and 17th would be select board. 23rd.
23rd or the 30th. There's a 5th Monday in.
It gives us more time to get stuff out there and get the
And Lewis more
paperwork in.
time to finish stuff up.
What do you think about?
We
the
were talking
23rd?
about approving at your regular meeting and then having a pre-town meeting, which will just be informational.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure because I need to get reports for the town report done.
Right.
And so I can't do that until we have an approved budget, and the 23rd, I think, would be too late.
Well, 23rd would be, yeah.
Would be too late.
No.
Too late to approve a budget.
Oh,
The 9th,
yes,
we
yes.
pretty much have
Yeah,
to approve
9th,
the budget.
9th we want to be done. Ideally.
And we don't want it Martin Luther King, so it would be the 23rd of January.
Or the 30th, which is the 5th Monday.
I hate to put it out one more week.
Well, does
I
it,
could do either.
yeah, I don't know what they can do. So I was
Compare.
just,
When you get old like I am, you don't have to give in anymore.
Well, do we want to reach out just to see if the
Yeah.
23rd or
I
30th?
can.
I'll hold both those dates on the calendar right now, and then
Okay.
we can see which works for them. Okay.
Let's see if I can get hold of the king, see if he can give me a,
What time would that be starting at? 7?
7. Yeah, 7. I will do that.
thank you. Do you have anything else for open session? Yes. Okay. Our next meeting is January 9th. In the cafeteria at 6.
In the cafeteria?
Sorry, in the library.
We're switching? Tell me, because
making
otherwise,
sure-
I'm gonna be
making sure we're all
sitting
awake
here all
tonight.
by myself.
What'd you say?
The 9th here.
In the library.
In the library.
So I need a motion to go into executive session for personnel contracts and negotiating or securing a real estate purchase or release options.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Woo-hoo. So we're going to take a brief break until about 8 to 10 p.m.